Hello and welcome. The way companies talk to the world is about to change in a really big way. Today, we're digging into a huge new law from the European Union that's completely rewriting the rulebook on corporate responsibility.
It's called the Corporate Sustainability Due Diligence Directive, or CSDD for short, and it's doing something pretty radical. It's moving companies beyond just publishing glossy sustainability reports and demanding they actively manage their human rights and environmental impacts.
So what does this actually mean for how a company communicates? Well, this whole directive really introduces two massive new requirements for how you talk to the outside world. It's a shift away from talking at people and towards talking with them in a way that's structured, meaningful, and, frankly, legally required. Okay, so here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll look at this new standard for corporate dialogue. Then, we'll get really specific on what meaningful engagement actually means and when you have to do it. After that, we'll dive into the new rules for setting up formal complaint systems and, this is so important, how to make sure they're fair and safe for everybody involved.
Right. So the first big shift here is moving away from the old corporate monologue, the press releases, the annual reports, and toward a genuine two-way conversation. The CSDD demands active communication. And this isn't just about looking transparent. It's about building real trust and, honestly, spotting risks before they blow up into full-blown crises.
And let's be crystal clear, this is not some optional feel-good thing for the company brochure. It is a mandatory part of the due diligence process. The whole point is to use these conversations to get ahead of problems, to find, prevent, and fix human rights and environmental issues across a company's entire operation. We're talking from suppliers all the way to customers. So that brings up a good question. When the EU uses a term like meaningful engagement, what do they actually mean? Because it's not just about holding a town hall, taking a box, and calling it a day. The standard is way, way higher than that. And the directive gets super specific here. This isn't just some vague concept. It is a process that's built on three main pillars. First, you have to give people all the information they need. Second, you have to create a space for a real, genuine back-and-forth conversation. And third, and this is absolutely critical, you have to make sure people feel safe when they speak up.
So, you can really see how this breaks down into four clear duties for a company. You have to be transparent with your information. You have to be a real listener, not just a broadcaster. You have to be inclusive and pay extra attention to the most vulnerable voices. And finally, you have to be a protector. You have to make sure anyone who has the guts to raise a concern is safe from any kind of backlash.
Okay, let's get practical for a minute and see how this actually fits into the whole due diligence lifecycle. Like, when exactly are companies supposed to be having these conversations?
Well, as you can see here, it's not a one-and-done kind of thing. It's a continuous cycle of communication. Companies are legally required to engage with stakeholders right from the very beginning, when they're just starting to identify potential risks. They have to keep that conversation going as they develop their action plans, and continue it all the way through to designing solutions if some harm has already happened.
All right, on to the second major requirement of the CSDDD, creating a formal, accessible system for people to raise concerns directly with the company. Now, this works together with the proactive engagement we just talked about, but it serves a really different purpose. This is the official, structured channel for complaints. And the key thing to get here is that this can't just be an email address buried on a Contact Us page somewhere. The law demands a formal system that is fair, public, and super easy to access. It also has to be predictable, so when someone raises an issue, they know exactly what to expect. And of course, it has to be transparent. So, let's break down the specific rules that make this whole complaints procedure fair, safe, and actually effective. The CSDD is very clear on who gets to use this system and how they have to be protected. The directive is deliberately broad on this point. It gives the right to submit legitimate concerns to several key groups who, have a direct stake in what a company is doing. This makes sure that the people who are directly impacted, like workers or folks in the local community, have a voice. But it also gives access to their representatives, like trade unions, and to expert organizations, like human rights groups and NGOs, who can bring in some really critical context and support. And this might be the most important part of the entire thing, protecting the people who speak up. The directive puts the responsibility squarely on the company's shoulders to prevent any, and they mean any, form of retaliation. This is a total deal breaker. Because if people don't feel safe, the whole system just falls apart. No one will ever use it. And to make sure that protection is real, companies have to set up mechanisms for both anonymous and confidential notifications. So what's the difference? Well, anonymous means the company literally never knows who you are. Confidential means the company knows who you are, but they are legally bound to protect your identity from being revealed to anyone else. Having both options is just crucial for building trust.
So when you put it all together, the CSDD is really building two powerful pillars of communication. You've got the proactive, meaningful engagement to get ahead of problems, and then you have a secure, formal channel for raising grievances when they do happen. This isn't just a new set of rules. It's a demand for a total cultural shift inside companies toward real accountability.
And that leaves us with one final thought. As these rules kick in for companies doing business in the EU, they might just set a new, much higher bar for what responsible business looks like all over the world. It really feels like the era of the corporate monologue is over, and the age of dialogue has officially begun.